The studio lights burned bright as Kellyanne Conway faced off with Jasmine Crockett, her expression tight with irritation even before the cameras began rolling. What happened in the next half-minute would explode across social media, showing the country the sharp contrast between unrestrained anger and unshakable composure. Conway, the former White House advisor known for her relentless on-air battles, arrived ready to dominate. Across from her sat Crockett, the rising congresswoman from Texas, poised in a navy blazer, hands resting neatly in her lap, unaware that she was about to become one of the most talked-about figures in American politics. "You think you can just sit here and lecture me about politics?" Conway snapped, her voice trembling with rage as she leaned in, her blonde hair brushing her shoulders. "You're just a rookie who doesn't know her place." What happened next stunned everyone in the studio. Crockett's response, calm, measured, and razor-sharp, would rack up millions of views within hours, catapulting her into the national spotlight overnight. Before we break down this unforgettable exchange, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from, because what follows is nothing short of historic. The room fell silent. The host froze, unsure how to proceed, while Crockett sat there, the faintest trace of a smile playing on her lips. She was seconds away from delivering one of the most memorable political moments of the year. To understand why this clash shook the political landscape, you need to know who these two women are, and why their showdown struck such a nerve. Kellyanne Conway, 57, is a seasoned political warrior. She helped lead Donald Trump's 2016 campaign to victory, served as a senior counselor in the White House, and became known for her fearless, sharp-tongued interviews that often left even the toughest journalists scrambling. Her ability to stay on message and never flinch in the face of criticism made her a staple of modern political combat. She came to the studio with that same confidence, a crisp white blazer over black, hair perfectly coiffed, piercing blue eyes focused and unrelenting. Armed with notebooks of talking points and years of experience sparring with the media, she believed no opponent could match her intensity. But sitting across from her was someone unlike anyone she'd faced before. Jasmine Crockett, at just 42, represents a new wave of leadership in Washington. A former public defender turned civil rights attorney, she built her reputation by fighting for those without a voice. Her grassroots connection to voters propelled her to Congress, where her ability to stay cool under pressure and speak plainly about people's everyday struggles earned her respect across party lines. That morning, Crockett had dressed deliberately, a sharp navy blazer signaling authority without flash, minimal jewelry, and simple, elegant styling. She wasn't there for theatrics. She was there to be heard. Everything about Crockett's presence projected quiet strength, professional, approachable, and utterly unshaken. While Conway had prepped with stacks of notes and sharp attack lines, Crockett brought something far more powerful, an unshakable confidence in her own message and the ability to stay calm when others lost control. This wasn't just another political debate, it was a clash of two completely different approaches to power. Conway embodied the old-school playbook, win by being louder, more aggressive, more relentless. Crockett was something new, a leader proving that patience, truth, and composure could cut deeper than shouting ever could. The spark that brought them together? A deeply divisive voting rights bill tearing through Congress and the country. Conway came ready to defend the conservative stance, while Crockett was there to push for expanded voter access. But everyone in that studio knew it wasn't just about policy. It was about two starkly different visions of how politics should be done in America. Sensing the tension, the host tried to start with a gentle introduction. But Conway wasn't interested in gentle. She came for a fight, though not the one she was about to get. Her plan was classic Conway: overwhelm the opponent with aggressive questioning, force her into defensive answers, and lean on decades of experience to make the younger congresswoman seem outmatched. It had worked countless times before, but Jasmine Crockett wasn't just another politician. And Conway was about to find that out the hard way. The cameras went live. The lights burned hotter. And America was about to watch a masterclass: how composure can outshine aggression, how truth can dismantle tactics, and how sometimes the quiet voice is the one that carries the farthest. The host opened the segment. We're here to discuss the voting rights legislation currently before Congress. Joining us are former White House counselor Kellyanne Conway and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas. Conway didn't even wait for the first question. She jumped in, voice sharp. Let me make something clear right now. This so-called voting rights bill is nothing more than a federal takeover of our elections, a scheme to let Democrats cheat. And frankly, I'm tired of freshman politicians like Ms. Crockett pretending they understand the complexities of election law. Crockett didn't flinch. She sat perfectly still, hands folded, her expression calm, and simply said, "Thank you, Kellyanne. I appreciate you sharing your perspective." The polite response only fueled Conway's anger. Her face flushed red as she leaned forward. "Don't patronize me, Congresswoman. I was managing presidential campaigns when you were still in law school. I know voter fraud when I see it, and this bill makes it easier than ever." Crockett, steady as ever, replied in a measured tone. "I'd love to hear about the specific examples of voter fraud you're referencing. Could you share the evidence you're relying on?" That question landed like a punch. Conway blinked, thrown off script. She was used to opponents who yelled back, who got flustered and dragged into the noise. But Crockett's poise, her refusal to take the bait, left Conway scrambling. "The evidence is everywhere," Conway snapped, her pitch climbing. "Dead people voting. Non-citizens voting. Ballot harvesting in swing states. But politicians like you don't want to acknowledge it because it doesn't fit your narrative." Behind the cameras, the crew exchanged glances. The sound engineer winced as Conway's rising volume pushed the mics to their limits. In the control room, producers leaned forward, whispering urgently as live clips started trending on social media. Viewers were already weighing in. Is Conway okay? Crockett is handling this like a pro. This is hard to watch. The host tried to steer things back on track. "Let's focus on the specific provisions of the bill." But Conway cut him off, practically shouting, "No. I'm tired of being interrupted. I'm tired of being lectured by people who don't know what they are talking about. This woman," she jabbed a finger toward Crockett, "has been in Congress for what, 2 years? And she thinks she can school me about politics." Through it all, Crockett didn't flinch. She calmly sipped her water, glanced at her notes, and kept the same even, pleasant expression. When Conway finally paused to breathe, Crockett leaned in slightly and, in that same steady tone, said, "I understand you're passionate about this issue. Kellyanne, passion is important in politics," Crockett said evenly. "But I think our viewers would benefit more from talking about the actual facts rather than just repeating talking points." Conway's face deepened from red to almost purple. "Facts? You want facts? Here's a fact. You and your party actively destroying the integrity of our elections. You're making it impossible for states to ensure voters are who they claim to be." "Which provision are you referring to, exactly?" Crockett asked, still calm. "I have the bill right here if you'd like to discuss the language." Conway slammed her palm on the desk. "Don't play games with me. You know what I'm talking about. This bill eliminates voter ID, allows ballot harvesting, and blocks states from cleaning up their voter rolls. It's a disaster waiting to happen." Crockett nodded slightly, her expression thoughtful. "I appreciate you bringing those points up. But to clarify, the bill actually strengthens voter ID by ensuring every American can obtain free identification. It doesn't remove ID requirements, it makes them more accessible. Would you like to see the specific section?" Conway's voice cracked as she practically shouted, "Stop twisting the truth. I've read the bill cover to cover. I know exactly what your agenda is." "And what do you think my agenda is?" Crockett asked, tilting her head with genuine curiosity. "To make it easier for Democrats to cheat." Conway yelled, her voice so high-pitched that the sound tech winced through his headset. "To flood the system with illegal votes so you can cling to power. That's your game, and everyone knows it." The studio went dead silent except for Conway's heavy breathing. She had just accused a sitting member of Congress of orchestrating election fraud on live television. Even she seemed to realize, for a fleeting moment, that she'd crossed a line. Crockett let the silence linger, then spoke in that same calm, steady tone that had defined her throughout the exchange. "Kellyanne, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Every vote I cast and every bill I support is guided by that oath and my commitment to the people I serve. I believe democracy is stronger when more eligible Americans are able to participate in it." Conway tried to rally. That right there is exactly what I'm talking about," she sputtered. "That political double talk. You say one thing, but you mean something else." Crockett leaned forward slightly, her voice still soft but firm. "What do you think I mean?" For the first time, Conway hesitated, her mouth opening and closing without a sound. Her entire strategy had been built on the assumption that Crockett would get flustered or angry, giving her fuel to escalate. But instead, every calm response, every polite question, every refusal to match her fury was making Conway look increasingly unhinged. Sensing the tension, the host attempted to pivot. "Let's move to a discussion of state-level election laws." "I don't need help," Conway snapped, cutting him off. "I can handle this." She turned back to Crockett, her voice dropping from a scream to a growl. "You think you're so clever, don't you? You think that sitting there with that lawyer voice and that calm expression makes you right?" Crockett tilted her head slightly, her tone unshaken. I don't think of this as something to win or lose, Kellyanne. I think of it as an opportunity to have a constructive conversation about how we can make democracy work better for everyone. The disbelief in Conway's eyes said everything. She had unleashed every insult, every conspiracy, every accusation of bad faith, and none of it had worked. The cameras caught every second. Conway, unraveling, Crockett, unshaken. Social media was exploding. Clips of Conway shouting while Crockett calmly sipped her water were flooding timelines. Jasmine Crockett was trending, followed closely by Conway meltdown. And yet, the real turning point was still ahead. Conway, desperate to regain control, dug deeper. Her gestures had grown wilder. Her hair was slightly undone, her voice hoarse from shouting. Makeup staff watched helplessly from the wings, knowing there wasn't enough powder in the world to fix what was happening on screen. Security edged closer to the set, not because they feared violence, but because her unraveling was becoming uncomfortable to watch. And then came the moment everyone would remember. You know what your problem is, Conway said, pointing a trembling finger at Crockett. Your problem is that you think being calm makes you right. You think that if you sit there, smiling and quiet, people will believe you're the adult in the room. But I see right through you. Crockett didn't move. Her posture stayed perfect, her hands still folded neatly in front of her. The same pleasant, unbothered expression on her face, as if nothing Conway could say would shake her. What do you see, Kellyanne? Crockett asked, her tone steady. I see a politician trying to fool people. Conway's voice cracked as she reached a near scream. I see someone acting sweet and reasonable on TV while pushing a bill that will destroy our democracy. The host tried to step in. Maybe we can steer this toward the constitutional questions. The Constitution. Conway snapped, whipping around to face him. Don't you dare lecture me about the Constitution. I defended it every single day in the White House while she was still trying to figure out how to play politics. She turned back to Crockett, trembling with rage now. You want to talk about the Constitution? It doesn't say we have to make voting so easy that fraud becomes inevitable. It doesn't say we have to abandon common sense just to make people feel good. Crockett nodded slightly, her voice calm as ever. You're right, the Constitution doesn't say those things. But it does say, in the 14th and 15th Amendments, that every citizen has the right to vote, and that right can't be denied or restricted. The real question here is how we balance security with access. Conway slammed both hands on the desk so hard her glass wobbled. Stop being so reasonable, she shouted. Stop pretending you're above all this. I know who you really are. The studio froze. She had just screamed at someone for being too reasonable, and the sheer absurdity of it hung in the air like smoke. Crockett let the silence stretch, then spoke, her voice softer now, almost compassionate. Kellyanne, she said gently, I can see how deeply you care about this issue, and I respect that. These things matter to me, too. But we can debate policy without questioning each other's character or integrity. For the first time all segment, Conway didn't have a response. She just stared, stunned. Crockett leaned forward, her tone steady but now carrying quiet authority. You've spent most of this conversation telling me what you think I believe, or what you think I'm trying to do. But you haven't asked me once why I support this bill. So let me tell you. I was a public defender for years before I came to Congress. I saw firsthand what happens when people are shut out of the process, clients who'd been stripped of their rights, seniors who couldn't get to the DMV to renew an ID, working parents who couldn't take time off during limited polling hours. I don't back this bill because I want Democrats to win. I back it because I want democracy to win. For a moment, the room was silent. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Conway said, That's not what this bill does. Crockett's reply was calm, almost inviting. Then help me understand. Not what someone told you about the bill, but what specific section concerns you, and why. For the first time, Conway glanced down at her notes. She flipped through papers, searching for something, anything, to anchor her arguments. The cameras caught every second of her fumbling. Finally, she muttered, her voice quieter now. The provision about maintaining voter rolls. States need to clean up their lists. I agree completely, Crockett said with a polite nod. And this bill doesn't stop that. What it does is require states to use reliable data sources and notify voters before making changes. Would you support that? Conway blinked, caught off guard. Well, notice is important, yes, but... You're worried about the timeline. Crockett offered gently. Yes, Conway said, her tone finally losing its edge. The timeline could let ineligible voters remain on the rolls through an election cycle. Crockett opened the copy of the bill she'd kept beside her. Actually, it calls for immediate removal when there's verified proof of death. The notice only applies to address changes or other updates. Would you like to see the section? Conway stared at the text, then back at Crockett, then back down again. The woman known for never backing down, for never conceding a single point, looked suddenly small in her chair. I may have misunderstood that part, she said quietly. The words hung in the air like a confession. Crockett, still calm, spoke with quiet empathy. It's easy to misunderstand complex legislation, especially when we're relying on summaries or headlines. That's why I always try to read the full text myself before I form an opinion. Conway gave a faint, almost involuntary nod. And that, Crockett continued, her voice still soft but now carrying unmistakable authority, is why I believe these conversations are so important. When we lead with assumptions, when we start from the belief that the other side is evil or corrupt, we stop listening. And democracy doesn't work if we stop listening. The host, silent until now, finally found his voice. Congresswoman Crockett, he said softly, that's a powerful point about the importance of civil discourse. Conway swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. I apologize if I got too heated, she said, her tone stripped of bravado. These issues, they mean a lot to me. They matter to me too, Crockett replied with a warm, unshaken smile. And that's exactly why we should be able to discuss them with respect. The cameras caught everything. Conway's unraveling, her quiet, almost reluctant apology, and, more than anything, Jasmine Crockett's masterclass in calm, fact-driven composure. By the time the studio lights dimmed, the internet had already erupted. Clips of the exchange were everywhere. Not just Conway shouting, though her "stop being so reasonable" moment was already a meme, but Crockett's poise. Her ability to remain factual, composed, and devastatingly effective had flipped what was meant to be an ambush into a showcase of authentic leadership. Within minutes, Crockett was trending across social platforms. One viral clip, captioned, "When someone yells at you for being reasonable," soared past 100,000 views in the first hour. But the video that truly exploded was a longer cut, Conway's heated accusations, followed by Crockett's calm explanation about democracy, listening, and finding solutions. A prominent civil rights attorney shared it with the caption, "This is what leadership looks like in 2024, calm, factual, and focused on solving problems instead of creating drama." Political commentators were left scrambling. Even seasoned conservative strategists struggled to defend Conway's meltdown. One well-known GOP insider admitted, Crockett handled this masterfully. She stayed calm, stuck to facts, and made her point without raising her voice. That's political skill. The internet, meanwhile, did what it does best, turned the chaos into comedy gold. Memes of Conway's outburst went viral, but in a surprising twist, the humor often highlighted Crockett's grace rather than Conway's frustration. One of the most shared images showed Crockett sitting calmly, captioned, "How to win an argument without raising your voice." Major news outlets rushed to cover the moment. Headlines read, Congresswoman's calm response to on-air meltdown sparks debate on political discourse. Cable networks devoted hours to analyzing what some experts started calling the Crockett method, a strategy of using composure and truth as tools against chaos. Even late-night comedians weighed in. One joked, Kellyanne Conway yelled at someone for being too reasonable. That's like screaming at a waiter for bringing your order on time. Conway tried to regain control of the narrative, posting that her passion came through as intensity, but the replies were brutal. Passion isn't screaming at someone who stays calm. That's just losing control. For Jasmine Crockett, the moment was transformative. Millions of new followers, thousands of interview requests, and a chance to turn a viral clip into a conversation about what leadership should look like. Her reply couldn't have been more on point. She posted a short, heartfelt video message. "Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. This is exactly why facts and mutual respect matter, even when we don't see eye to eye. Democracy works best when we truly listen to one another." That clip spread like wildfire, shared tens of thousands of times with comments like, "This is the kind of leadership we've been waiting for," and finally, "A politician who proves you can be strong without shouting." What started as a tense TV exchange quickly turned into a worldwide conversation. International outlets picked up the story, framing it as a rare moment of composure in American politics. One European headline summed it up perfectly, "When shouting meets calm, a lesson in leadership." Political analysts abroad used the clip as a teaching tool. A Canadian political scientist noted, Congresswoman Crockett showcased a maturity in political communication that's desperately needed, calm under pressure while still delivering substance. Soon, translated versions of the video, complete with subtitles, were circulating across social platforms, with viewers in multiple languages praising Crockett's measured approach and questioning Conway's combative style. Back home, universities quickly folded the exchange into their curricula. Political science professors dissected it as a masterclass in strategy, while psychology departments examined it as a textbook example of emotional control under stress. One academic paper titled The Crockett Method, Calm Authority as a Political Strategy analyzed how she stayed in command without ever raising her voice or getting personal. Communication and business schools followed suit. Media instructors began teaching the Crockett technique as a method for managing hostile interviews, identifying key steps, acknowledge the emotion behind the attack, steer the conversation back to facts, ask clear clarifying questions, and maintain a steady tone no matter how heated things get. Corporate leaders took notice, too. HR teams started using the clip in conflict resolution training, and executive coaches wove it into lessons on leadership under pressure. Several Fortune 500 companies even shared it internally, showing employees how composure can drive better outcomes during tense negotiations. One CEO tweeted, "Every leader should watch how Representative Jasmine Crockett handled this. That's what real professionalism under pressure looks like." Perhaps the most striking impact, though, came from the generational response. Polling revealed a sharp divide. Voters under 40 overwhelmingly praised Crockett's calm, controlled demeanor, calling it presidential and trustworthy, while older demographics were more split in their views. Focus groups confirmed it. To younger Americans, Conway's shouting felt outdated and embarrassing, while Crockett's quiet strength signaled the kind of leadership they wanted to see more of. Democratic strategists were quick to point out that Crockett's poised performance could become a blueprint for winning over younger voters, many of whom have grown weary of the constant shouting matches in politics. On the other side, Republican strategists privately worried that Conway's aggressive style might be turning off exactly the demographics they needed to court in upcoming elections. The ripple effect was immediate. Democratic fundraising numbers spiked as donors rallied behind Crockett, while progressive groups began sharing the clip as a shining example of powerful but respectful political communication. But the influence of the moment stretched well beyond party lines. Teachers started playing the clip in civics classes to illustrate healthy debate. Communication scholars dissected Crockett's approach, how she stayed calm under fire, asked thoughtful clarifying questions instead of hurling accusations, and ultimately let facts, not volume, carry the argument. Behind the scenes, Republican operatives were deeply concerned. Conway had been viewed as one of their sharpest communicators, someone who could hold her own in any setting. Seeing her so effectively neutralized by calm reasoning and steady questioning raised uncomfortable questions about the party's messaging strategy as a whole. Data from social platforms painted an even clearer picture. Clips highlighting Crockett's calm, confident demeanor were shared far more than Conway's fiery retorts. The comments were equally telling. Users praised Crockett's class and professionalism, while many expressed embarrassment over Conway's behavior. A generational divide emerged as well. Younger viewers overwhelmingly embraced Crockett's style, praising her for actually listening and responding rather than simply waiting to counterattack. Many said it was the first time they'd seen a debate that felt constructive instead of combative. Experts in political communication started calling it the Crockett model, the idea that in today's social media-driven world, steady professionalism can resonate more deeply than aggressive confrontation. Several Democratic candidates quietly began incorporating her techniques into their own interviews and appearances. The moment also fueled a broader conversation about women in politics and leadership styles. Crockett and Conway showcased two very different ways to wield influence, and public reaction strongly suggested that voters preferred Crockett's measured approach. More importantly, the viral exchange became a cultural lesson in what political discourse could be. Millions watched Crockett demonstrate that strength doesn't have to be loud, that facts can outweigh fury, and that showing respect for an opponent doesn't mean backing down. The clip found its way into high school government classrooms, corporate conflict resolution seminars, and graduate courses on political communication. Conway's career wasn't over, but there was no denying that the incident left a mark, a reminder that in the modern political arena, tone can be just as powerful as message. Conway remained a regular presence on political panels, but networks became far more cautious about pairing her with opponents who could match her intensity with calm, fact-driven composure. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's star continued to rise. She became a fixture on national news programs, was invited to headline conferences across the country, and quickly emerged as a leading voice for a new generation of Americans who believe democracy works best when people actually listen to one another. What started as a viral moment had become something bigger, a case study in what political communication could look like. Instead of two people shouting past each other, viewers had seen one person attack while the other sought to understand, respond, and stay grounded. The fact that this measured approach didn't just hold up, but won decisively, sent a powerful signal to politicians across the spectrum. Maybe it was time to rethink the way political battles are fought. In a climate dominated by outrage and division, Crockett showed that there's still power in reason, strength in composure, and victory in treating opponents with respect, all without compromising on principle. The response to her approach suggested something profound. Americans might finally be ready for a different kind of politics, one where strength is measured by calm confidence, and winning means finding solutions, not just scoring points. So, what do you think? Did Jasmine Crockett handle that exchange perfectly, or would you have responded differently to Conway's attacks? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the moments that are reshaping American politics. Which approach resonates with you more, Conway's aggressive style or Crockett's calm professionalism? Share this video with someone who needs to see what real leadership looks like.